Thank you. Thank you. Since we have all the participants, but mainly our ambassadors at the round table, so we'll conduct the section in English. So distinguished excellencies, also ladies and gentlemen and colleagues at this CIFTIS 2022 and CCG9's China Inbound Outbound Forum. So almost 3 years actually, we're getting to the COVID-19 pandemic. The global economy is still facing an increasingly gloomy and uncertain outlook. Inflation is a major global concern, and spillover from the Russian-Ukraine conflict are also hastening and decelerating the global economic growth, which is now expected to slow to 2.9% in 2022, according to the recent World Bank research. So this November, we're having two major international leaders summit, which is G20 and APEC, will take place in Indonesia and Thailand, respectively, and one of the major focus will be the economic recovery. CIFTIS has covered the 12 sectors of trade in service defined by the WTO, including education, tourism, health, financial services, and many more. So according to the latest WTO service trade barometer, world service trade is outpacing the goods trade, which points to a possible shift of consumption patterns away from goods and back to the service as COVID pandemic ease. The global travel and the tourism sector, for example, are projected to return to the pre-pandemic level in 2023 and contribute to a 5.8% growth in global GDP. So we really hope for that day, and this is really a service boost for us. So I think for today's roundtable, basically we're going to talk about the rebound in service sectors that has a potential to play a major role in global pandemic recovery. What are the major challenges facing service sectors worldwide? What can the government do to further unleash potential of the service industries domestically and internationally? As the CIFTIS continuously seeks to reaffirm, China has taken a number of measures to widen the opening up of its service industries and pledge to more efforts to promote the opening up of trade and service to a higher level. How can foreign markets leverage the import-export opportunities? Which measures can be expected from China in its efforts to further improve business environment as the country ushers in a new development phase? Digital trade, as we have seen that in our opening section as well, that service has become more dynamic and more in demand. China has recently established a working team to join the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement, DEPA. So this is really encouraging news. How will regional trade architects such as RCEP, CPTPP, DEPA can help to develop digital trade and boost the regional economy. So the global FDI flows rose to 64% to 1.58 trillion in 2021, with momentum from booming mergers and acquisition activities in rapid growth in international project finance. So what government can do on those national, bilateral, and multilateral level to support the momentum, that is really also very, very important. So really to discuss all those issues, we are extremely honored that we have the distinguished ambassadors and Church Affairs that we have invited from our diplomatic corps in Beijing. I'd like to just briefly introduce them, and then we'll start the ambassador roundtable. I'll just introduce this in a country alphabetic order. So His Excellency Rihad Osama, the permanent representative of African Union to China. So it's right here. His Excellency Graham Fletcher, Ambassador of Australia to China. His Excellency Sophia Hotet, Chargé d'Affaires of Embassy of Belgium to China. His Excellency His Excellency Soli Kornani, Chargé d'Affaires Embassy of Finland to China. I would like to particularly also introduce Her Excellency Patricia Helgegard Flohr, Ambassador of Germany to China. And also Her Excellency Maria Gistava, Ambassador of Mozambique to China. Her Excellency, His Excellency Vishnu Shrestha, Ambassador of Nepal to China. Her Excellency Claire Fernelli, Ambassador of New Zealand to China. She's still probably on the way, yeah. And then, of course, His Excellency Luis Quesada, Ambassador of Peru to China. And His Excellency Ali Duhari, Ambassador of United Arab Emirates to China. Oh, yeah. That's what and of course, I have a very important ambassador to introduce as well. The ambassador of Malaysia actually is also here with us. His Excellency Raja Dato Nishana Abidin, ambassador of Malaysia to China. Actually, as a very old friend of CCG. Sorry to you've been hiding there. So thank you. So this is really a great event that we have. CCG has been organizing for the last number of years. So every year at the CIFTIS we have an ambassador roundtable, and but also of course we hold ambassador roundtable at the CCG head office as well. So we will have a very distinguished panels. So the format of this roundtable will be that we'll have each ambassador speak about 5 to 8 minutes, and then we can open for some questions and discussions. And so I will just again talk with the order of my introduction. So first I would like to invite Ambassador His Excellency Rahatali Osama Anno, permanent representative of African Union to China. He had spoken at previously at the CCG roundtable, and we know that Africa and China has many corporations, and China-African Forum on China-African Cooperation (FOCA) has hosted 8 summits during the past 2 decades. And also Ambassador Anno has contributed to the CCG publication, Ambassador's book actually, China and the World in a Challenging Context, Perspective from Ambassador to China. He actually contributed an article about prospects for China-Africa cooperation, focusing on the impact of FOCA and the growing cooperation between China and Africa. So Ambassador Osama Anno, your turn please.
Thank you, Doctor. And first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me once again to this roundtable. Although the issue is focusing on the service sector, but I would like to handle the matter from a different angle, because the issues of concern for the developing and poor countries are not the same like the issues of concern to the developed ones. So it is apparent that the global economic governance is facing a lot of daunting challenges, which are a result of, among other things, of the inability of the existing global economic institutions to cope with the perpetuating economic crisis, which recently compounded by the eruption of the COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. This had led inter alia to derailing the implementation of the SDGs. The institutions which were created 60 years ago in Bretton Woods need or called for restructuring. In order to cope with the new complicated realities. Not only that, but we seriously believe that it is imperative to augment the role of the United Nations institutions and the regional economic mechanisms like ours, and to have greater engagement to lead in the formulation of the economic order we are asking for a long time. Because this will in turn strengthen the transparency, engagement, and ownership of the poor countries who are currently excluded from the shaping of the global economic governance. I thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's your very brief observation. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. That I think you're right. You know, we have to really focus on the future development of the economy and the state of the world. I know that Ambassador Ano was actually he was in China since 2018, and also previously he served as the permanent representative of Sudan to the United Nations, Under Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Khartoum, and he was also ambassador of Venezuela and Argentina to Chile and Brazil, so has many senior postings. Now I would like to invite our second representative of our diplomatic missions to speak. His Excellency Graham Fletcher, Ambassador of Australia to China. And Ambassador Fletcher took up his post as Ambassador to China in 2019. And he is a career officer of Diplomatic Foreign Affairs and Trade. And his recent roles in Canberra, including heading the North Asia Division and also completing the China-Australian Free Trade Agreement. And also, Ambassador Fletcher has contributed to the CCG publication on this ambassador's book. He actually wrote the deepening bilateral and multilateral trade through expanded FTAs. And of course, he's a frequent guest to our Ambassador Roundtable. And of course, Australia is a member of the CPTPP. And of course, the relationship between China and Australia has also economically has been very important in all those years. And China actually is Australia's largest trading partner and also has invested heavily in the Australian mining sectors. So Ambassador Fletcher, your turn, please.
Well, thank you. And Dr. Wang, it's a great pleasure to be back at a CCG forum and to meet old friends and have a good discussion. This is a very important subject. The global trading system has faced extraordinary challenges during the pandemic. Supply chain disruptions have had a significant impact on international trade in goods, but trade in services was even worse hit. Of course, travel was a very early casualty of the pandemic. And estimates from the OECD show that trade in goods went down about 8% among OECD members, but trade in services declined by double that, around 17%, and is recovering more slowly. Of course, the one exception, and it's a good one, is digitally delivered services, which have boomed. And I think that's probably the only good thing you could say has emerged from the pandemic is people have learned more flexible ways of operating, whether it's in a business or even a government enterprise working remotely, but also between countries, the delivery of services, when it can be done digitally, is now more familiar to people. So during the pandemic, the closure of borders, quarantine measures restricted much of the person-to-person contact that underpins trade in services and long-term investment. According to the World Bank, non-tariff barriers also remain high in this region. Several economies have relatively restrictive policies for trade in services. For Australia, China is our largest services market. Tourism and education are the two main services aspects of our trade. That, of course, went down very quickly as people stopped travelling. I mean, Australia introduced quarantine quite early and then stopped most entry into Australia, even for Australian citizens, was difficult. And, of course, China, for its own part, had certain barriers to travel. Now that quarantine requirements are more relaxed in many places, borders are now opening and so much travel is resuming. For Australia, we're seeing students coming back, including from China. There's been some reduction, but the application rate of people applying for visas to come to Australia to study from China is now close to what it was before the pandemic, so that's a good sign for the future. Tourism, unfortunately, is off to a slower start. From other countries into Australia, the numbers of tourists are starting to grow, but unfortunately from China, it's not easy at all, and in fact I think the government here still discourages Chinese citizens to travel for short-term purposes, whether it's business or tourism. We look forward very much to the time when China will be able to rejoin in terms of international travel the rest of the region and the world, and at that point hopefully the airlines will respond as well, because at the moment there are still not many flights a week between China and most other countries. If I could just say as an aside, I mean, clearly for China, the pandemic remains a major challenge, and a major objective of the government is to suppress the infection. It's been remarkably successful in doing so, and we look forward to the time when the vaccination rates are high and the Chinese economy can reopen. So in the meantime, governments can work together to support the recovery. Back in June, the 12th Ministerial Conference of the WTO agreed a package of substantive outcomes which provided a boost of confidence for the rules-based trading system, including by continuing the moratorium on customs duties on electronic transmissions. Elsewhere, free trade agreements and technical cooperation also has a part to play. Most recently, the entry into force of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, RCEP, we call it RCEP. That's an important agreement, brings together all the members of ASEAN, Japan, China, Korea, Australia and New Zealand. This will not only improve market access for service providers and investors among the member countries, but it also provides rules and disciplines to improve the business environment more generally, and e-commerce commitments which will support the flow of data, promote privacy and consumer protection. Within APEC, another significant regional body, there's also a range of technical cooperation amongst officials from the different economies, which will drive practical cooperation between those economies to grow trade in services and digital trade. For example, the APEC Group on Services has agreed landmark definitions of logistics-related services, which hopefully can set a standard for others. This is all very technical, it's quite a detailed area, but it's important for the backbone of trade in essential goods. For Australia, it remains a priority to accelerate the growth and development of the digital economy. Its importance has become to the fore given the other disruptions during the pandemic. Australia remains committed to working together with partners bilaterally, regionally and internationally to continue this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Fletcher. And yes, I think that the regional comprehensive agreement RCEP is really taken effect this year now, and actually since January, and that is really picking up among the RCEP member countries. And I'm glad you mentioned about China was Australia, one of the largest tourist and student service country, which Australia and China has a long tradition in that sector. So we hopefully, when the pandemic is further under control, we resume that tourism and student exchange. But of course, China recently has announced that they're going to welcome all the students coming back, and all the APEC visa can now travel, working visa can back to China. So those are really good signs. Thank you, Ambassador Fletcher. Now I'd like to invite Her Excellency Sophie Hotete, the Belgian, the Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of Belgium in China. She has been a Minister, Head of the Economic Section of Belgian Embassy since August 2020. And of course, we know that China and Belgium has been really in very good cooperations for the past number of years, and so we hope that we are going to continue this cooperation. And so, your turn, please.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, and thank you very much for the invitation. Dear Wang Huiyao, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the growth of trade in services offers tremendous opportunities to develop and increase our economic connections. I'm glad to witness the growing importance of the CIFTIS Fair, which displays how China has mastered the development of widespread services across its society over the past years. We thank the Center for China and Globalization for organizing this timely event. I'm delighted to participate to this roundtable and draw on from the example of Belgium. I will try to contribute to today's discussion from macro to micro. Belgium is an open economy, and we rely on world trade. Our economy, like China's, is characterized by the growing importance of services. In 2020, services represented 55.4% of total brutto added value, against 14% for industry and 5% for construction. Services sector was heavily hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. In Belgium now, the sector is picking up again and has been picking up really quickly, thanks to improved consumers' confidence again and resuming travel and mobility around the world for businessmen and women, for students and tourists. We sincerely hope that mobility to and from China will soon follow the same trend, and that the Chinese territory will be again truly accessible. Face-to-face contacts is key for our business people and for our communities. Belgium and the Brussels capital region in particular set in motion an active transition into a sustainable economy. The European Attractiveness Survey in 2022, which has tracked the development of EU countries for 21 years, shows that regarding sustainable development, Belgium has an outstanding performance in terms of renewable energy and in electricity supply, but Also, local consumers have growing concerns about sustainability and climate change. At the same time, Belgium has an ecosystem built by companies that support sustainable development regulations, innovative clean technologies, and sustainable industries. Brussels, the capital of Belgium, has an extremely well-developed service-driven economy, as you can discover because they have a booth at the CIFTIS. But Brussels and Beijing are sister cities for almost 30 years and enjoy vibrant collaboration because despite the size, they have a lot of similarities. The service economy accounts for more than 90% of Brussels' GDP. Almost all major international service providers, consulting, accountancy, and law firms already set foot in Belgium. Brussels attracts the brightest talents from all over the world and has developed strong expertise in sectors like finance, pharmaceutical and biomedical, digital and legal. One striking example of this attractiveness of Brussels services is its role as international seat of arbitration. As one of the founding members of the EU and the signatory of the 1958 New York Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards, Belgium is a strong advocate of international trade and arbitration when adding an arbitration clause into contracts. Opting for a city like Brussels to be the seat of arbitration will ensure to rely on a range of legal cooperation services. Brussels is the world in pocket size. And it's not only the capital of Belgium, it's the heart of Europe, the place where decisions are made for 450 million European consumers. Due to its central geographical position at the heart of world trade flows and the main European consumer markets, Belgium is the gateway to 60% of Europe's consumption power within a 500-kilometer radius, within easy reach, thanks to dense logistics infrastructure. 2021 marked the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationship between the People's Republic of China and the Kingdom of Belgium. It allowed us to take stock of our trade relationship and to consolidate our work regarding market access and level playing field issues. It's also an opportunity to deepen economic and commercial ties in promising sectors, including services. Belgian companies have a lot to offer the Chinese market, and we hope this will allow us to work towards sound and balanced trade exchanges for goods and services. As a conclusion, we hope that the post-COVID positive trend that the services sectors in Belgium has been benefited from since the sanitary restrictive measures were lifted will soon also be witnessed in China. For our businesses active in services, we cannot understate the importance of in-person contacts. We hope that next year, CIFTIS grounds will be bubbling with representatives from companies from around the world, motivated and allowed to travel to China to seize their opportunities and to resume those wonderful people-to-people contacts. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Her Excellency Sophie Tate, and I know last year Belgium and China celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations, and also Belgium is one of the larger logistic and distribution center for China-EU railways express, and also in recent years Belgium become a popular destination for the Chinese international students. So there's a lot of service that we could collaborate in the future. So thank you again for your nice remarks. And now I'd like to invite in Her Excellency Solli Karanali, Charge d'Affaires Ambassador of Finland to China. And Ms. Solli Karanali started her new role as the Minister and Deputy Head of the mission in Finnish Embassy to Beijing from August 1, 2020. So congratulations, quite new, huh? Yes, 2020, last year actually. She has been with the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Finland since 2004, has been posted in the embassy in the US and also in the planning department, so you have quite a wide-ranging experience. we know that, Finland actually, in 2020, Finland and China celebrated the 70th anniversary of established diplomatic relations, and we have maintained a very good relation with Finland. Your former ambassador, Jano, actually contributed also to the CCG publication, the ambassador's perspective. His article was Finland's Open Code for Better Education Opportunity for Sino-Finnish Cooperation. So that was really welcomed in China. And I think the trade and also the service is also one of the areas that we need to collaborate. I still remember, the former ambassador held a big ice hockey team demonstration in your embassy a few years ago, attracted a lot of people. So it's good. We hope to ski in Finland someday. So maybe your turn, Ms. Karuna, please.
Thank you so much, President Wang, for your kind words of my country. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for inviting Finland once again to the roundtable discussion. And today's discussion certainly is an important topical one. And certainly, President Wang, you mentioned that we have a long diplomatic relations with China, but we are soon to celebrate also a 70 years anniversary of our trade cooperation, Finland and China. So if I'm not mistaken, it's next year already. Definitely, it is clear that the pandemic has shaped the global trade profoundly. And of course, it was the trade in services that was the hardest hit in the beginning of the pandemic, especially if you look at the Finnish-China trade in services. It was tourism was the sector that was very quickly growing, and it was just very rapidly decreased after the restrictions were put in place. It was stated in the ministerial meeting in Geneva in WTO in the summer that the services has a great importance to the global trade and especially in the developing countries. And when it comes to services trade, it's very vital to the global economy, both to the economic output, but also employment. While the services sector provides numerous opportunities, we see challenges ahead. The trade tends to be more complex in services than in goods, since the sector-specific national regulation in each country. And in order to tackle this challenge, we need clear and consistent rulemaking. It would be key to overcome obstacles. And definitely the pandemic hindered experts and well, tourists as well to travel and connect. Of course, there were the digital means that were found in to find a silver lining of that, what happened. But when it comes to physical cooperation, it should be addressed. We need cooperation and active engagement in the international fora where all the services trade rules are being discussed. It is more vital than ever now than when we are recovering and facing the various shocks to the global economy. It was mentioned in the guiding questions of this panel that the digital trade is in spotlight. And coming from Finland, a country of innovation and digital solutions, I couldn't agree more. And definitely the regional initiatives like DEPA that was mentioned is important stepping stone towards the global rules. And of course, it would be very welcome to see it expand geographically. Finland, as part of EU, we have our own model, and we're working on many bilateral agreements on digital trade. Yet, of course, the focus is in Geneva at the WTO e-commerce negotiations. And of course, the digital trade, it's inherently global in its nature. And we aim, and we all should aim, to focus on common rules and avoid regulatory fragmentation or trade barriers, localization requirements, to name one. When it comes to trade, predictability and transparency are very important. And now it is the time for many uncertainties, and sound and fair business environment would be more and more important than ever. We, as an open economy, Finland, we would call for openness, level playing field and reciprocity, and concrete actions when it comes to the business cooperation and especially investments. Of course, when it comes to investment, the sound the government predictability is very important for the investment environment. As it was mentioned before, one cannot emphasize too much how crucial the mobility of people and people-to-people connections are for dialogue and all the economic exchanges. And in most parts of the world, we are now learning how to live with the pandemic and trying to recover from the effects to our societies and economies. And definitely here in China, we have been now seeing lately positive steps being taken to ease the travel. And we hope strongly that more further easing can be taken place soon. The restrictions are causing and continue to cause increased uncertainty to the business environment. And definitely we call for strengthen the multilateral trading system, and the benefits of that would be visible and concrete, and of course the common rules would enhance the predictability and transparency that is needed in times of uncertainty. So to foster trade, economic growth and well-being for all should be the focus. And only way forward is to do it together. So we hope that with a positive tone, we will find a way out of the gloomy times that seems to be in front of us now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Karana. Yeah, thank you for your good speech. And actually, very important. Finland and China are enjoying a very long diplomatic relations, but also I think recent number of years, the tourism, the student exchanges, those service sectors are also increasing. I met quite a few people that actually studied in Finland. We have actually one staff studied in Finland before, so it's great. We have many opportunities ahead. Now I'd like to really introduce also a very new guest, but also very new friend to China. Her Excellency Patricia Hildegard-Flor, Ambassador of Germany to China. So Dr. Flor actually took the office as a new German ambassador to China in July, just recent in this year. And of course, she has a very rich diplomatic international experience. Prior to this, she served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Planning Partner of the European Union to Japan since 2018. And of course, her career includes posting at the German Permanent Mission to the UN and as the German ambassador to Georgia, special envoy to Eastern Europe and the Caucasus and Central Asia, Director General of the United Nations and on the global issues, Commissioner for Disarmament and Arms Control, as well as EU Special Representative for Central Asia. So a bit very impressive background there. And so we know that actually this year will mark the 50th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Germany. And of course, China and Germany agreed to take advantage of this event to deepen the bilateral cooperation in many fields. And I know that this July, China's State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock at the G20 Foreign Minister meetings. So there's hopefully there will be more government exchanges as time goes on. And of course, CCG has a very good relation with German different companies and of course government and the think tanks. CCG participates at Munich Security Forum every year, and the 2019 German parliamentary delegation visited CCG, and also we held track 2 dialogues with various German think tanks and corporations as well. So this is very important. First time to attend our ambassador roundtable. So, Your Excellency, your turn, please.
Thank you. Esteemed Mr. Wang, Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to today's inbound, outbound forum, which takes place in turbulent times. And I'm grateful for the CCG and the Office for the Leading Group of Beijing 2 Zones for organizing this forum, because sincere dialogue between representatives around the world is really needed more than ever to build or rebuild mutual understanding. Now, it's my first time here, and I'm really not a services trade expert, so allow me to take a more strategic view of where we are. So first, a meaningful, proper political and economic dialogue on cooperation is going to be a key element for sustainable progress in the global economy. It's true, Germany and China have long-standing and successful economic and political ties, and we are looking back on 50 years of these constructive relations. We cooperated in a wide range, and you all know this: trade, science, technology, digitalization, health, innovation, mobility, climate, environment, the list is long. China has developed enormously at great speed during this time, and large segments of the Chinese population directly benefited from this upward trend. And one factor of this success story has always been close international cooperation on the political and economic level. Today, more than 5,000 German companies are invested in China, and our economies, which also means the German and European economy and China, are strongly intertwined. By the way, visit the German booth if you want to know more about our companies. So China, as the most populous country and the second biggest economy in the world, and Germany as the largest economy in Europe, we do share a common responsibility to safeguard peace and to promote global economic development. There's a clear commitment on the German side, and I would like to call on China to continue working hand in hand towards achieving our goals. And therefore, again, it's essential to allow for meaningful dialogues, frank dialogue on all levels. And I don't mean by video conference. Real, sincere, solution-oriented dialogue in times of disagreement and differences requires personal interaction, like today. Now, sadly, 2020 has shown us in stark terms the enormous global challenges we face. There's no way to master these unless we cooperate closely internationally and in all possible multilateral settings, G20, WTO, APEC, ASEAN, you name it. And I agree, actually, with my colleague, the ambassador of the African Union, that we have to also promote reform of multilateral institutions, such as the WTO. We have to strengthen the United Nations and to improve global governance. So what are the key challenges and where do we encounter current obstacles for dialogue and cooperation? Unfortunately, I have to start with threats to international peace and security here. 2022 did not bring a more peaceful world, not globally, with many protracted conflicts continuing in Africa, in the Middle East, and it also did not bring peace in Europe. The European peace and security architecture was undermined by Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war against its neighbor, Ukraine, which violated international law and Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Seen from Germany, it brought war back to our doorstep, but it did also cause massive upheavals on international markets, especially food and energy. Well, in Asia, growing tensions around Taiwan and China's military exercises and threats after the visit of the US speaker also manifestly increased the security risks for all concerned. Instability around Taiwan and in Asia would inevitably impact on major economic players, and it would impact on a major shipping route for international trade with repercussions around the globe, wherever you are, in Germany, in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa. So China, as a member of the UN Security Council, has a big responsibility and role in contributing to maintaining peace and stability in the world and in its own region. Well, the second catastrophe last year, this year, the coronavirus pandemic. All countries struggled to find the right answer on how to defend our people against the virus while protecting the economy and allowing a return to normal life. Today, in many countries, in Germany and Europe and the world at large, we are on our way to live with this disease as we have learned to live with others in the past. China's zero-COVID policy is of a unique nature, and it has many direct effects on international economic and political cooperation. Here in Beijing, we witnessed this. High number of dialogues cancelled, like the World New Energy Vehicle Conference, the total absence of foreign delegations, government or business. Today, while the world is opening up and connecting again after more than 2 long years, China is still isolating. And the adverse effects are enormous. And because of the size of China's economy, it affects the whole world. Supply chains, price volatility, missed dialogue opportunities. And I think that for businesses, all of you, the costs have been tangible. Some investments delayed, some expatriates maybe leaving the country. So owners of Chinese-based subsidiaries, and I've talked to some in Berlin, not being able to visit their holdings here. It's not good for mutual understanding, which is desperately needing these days. So, third point, C. After globalization, will we see segmentation of our global economy? An opening, globalizing world economy was the basis for China's, Germany's, and other countries' successful economic performance. How far we will be able to maintain open, fair, and transparent global markets and a level playing field will determine the economic outlook for the future. The EU single market, including Germany, and the world at large, are in principle governed by open and fair competition as well as WTO rules. And clearly, trade and investment restrictions in many cases are incompatible with WTO rules, and they create barriers and make it harder to engage in trade or to invest. This is also true here in China. And we do see some practices which we would consider unfair, some import restrictions or preferential treatments for state-owned enterprises, the question of data restrictions, enforcement of intellectual property rights, not guaranteed, or some requirements of localization. So there are examples of practices which I hear from my companies do mean a competitive disadvantages for them. So these differences between the approaches in Europe, in the EU and China have resulted also in asymmetries and a lack of reciprocity, and it will harm both sides. This is what I want to stress. At the end of the day, an open market following WTO rules is in the best interest of both sides, of all sides, because economic cooperation needs a reliable framework to work in. In this context, we are particularly worried about recent examples also of politically motivated trade restrictions, for instance, against Australia and Lithuania. In view of these trends, it's even more imperative that we collectively work together to avoid an era of deglobalization, which would harm Germany, China, and everybody else. So the need for resilience. So threats to peace and security, barriers to economic interaction, the pandemic, it all forces decision makers around the world to consider how to deal with our dependencies. No doubt we see an increasing awareness of all of the existing dependencies caused by our recent experience, for instance, disruption in supply chains. And a recent example from China, when zero COVID measures culminated in a week-long lockdown in Shanghai and in other cities, it meant that these effects actually reach everyone globally. And they have just started to affect, for instance, ports in Hamburg and elsewhere. So it's clear that also the Russian aggression against Ukraine disrupted global food and energy markets on which all of us rely. So against this backdrop, everyone now feels the need to increase resilience at home and to safeguard our strategic sovereignty in an unstable international environment. Germany has a heavily industrialized and export-oriented economy. We cannot ignore these risks and vulnerabilities, and we have to consider diversification strategies. But this will not weaken our commitment to foreign trade and investment in general. We want companies to continue to engage in cooperation, but at the same time we want to reduce dependency risks for the German economy as a whole, as well as for our individual companies. Let me also mention that when we talk about dependencies, diversification, supply chains, we also have to live up to our commitment to universal, indivisible human rights. So therefore, we appreciate China's ratification of the 2 ILO fundamental conventions on forced labor. And now, of course, application in practice has to follow. China is key for the world economy and thus for all of us. And the Chinese market will play a leading role in many fields, also in order to address global challenges like digital transformation, green technology, and health. So decoupling from China or decoupling the Chinese economy from the rest of the world is clearly not what we want. But it's also a fact that some concepts like dual circulation would seem to potentially limit exchanges between China and us. And that, I think, would harm our shared ability to deal with the challenges we face. Lastly, China is a key partner for fighting climate change. Just look at the latest news. Drought and energy shortage in Sichuan, torrential rainfall, humanitarian catastrophe in Pakistan, the famous German river Rhine reduced to a mere trickle. I cannot stress enough that whatever other concerns we have, we must not abandon the fight against climate change. China is the biggest emitter of CO2 with a share of around 30% of global emissions. There's no way to reach climate protection goals in line with the Paris Agreement without China. And therefore, we highly welcome China's commitment to reach its peak emissions before 2030 and to become CO2 neutral by 2060. With respect to your great impact here in China on the global climate, any measures to reach the peak earlier, for instance, by defining specific reduction targets or forwarding the date to reach zero emissions, will be hugely beneficial to China and the whole world. Thus, Germany is looking forward for future cooperation with China to raise our ambitions and intensify the fight against climate change, bring pollution down, promote a sustainable global economy. Decarbonization is one of our core objectives, and we stand ready to exchange knowledge and experience with partners worldwide, and China is one of the most important partners. Concluding, one thing is certain. If we want to deal with the challenges of our times, personal exchange is needed on all levels, between governments, business, researchers, civil society. I sincerely hope that the management of the pandemic will allow for a dense series of high-level exchanges between the political leadership of China and the rest of the world. The upcoming G20 meeting offers a splendid opportunity for resumed dialogue. This is needed more than ever to rebuild mutual understanding, which in turn is necessary to create an adequate framework to tackle together the global challenges ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Floor, and for your very frank and constructive speech. And I really think that is you emphasized also that decoupling is not a solution, you know, that with the economy. So this is really a great the message that we're hearing. And also you stressed them in many fronts that we have to strengthen the cooperation on global governance and also, of course, on climate change and all those issues. I'm politically encouraged by your mention that business cooperation between China and Germany has gone very strong. I understand that Germany and China have developed, you know, deep ties in those economic sectors. I mean, ranging from cars, motor vehicles, pharmaceutical products. As a matter of fact, we know most German companies have offices in China. I was really impressed by the number you mentioned. There were 5,000 German companies working in China, and they have offices, branches. So in many areas, innovation, automobile, green energy, service sector. And company like BMW AG, which we have represented here today, and many other German companies, Volkswagen, BASF, Siemens, and Allianz SE, Daimler AG, you know, Deutsche Telekom, and DHL, and Merck. You know, the name goes on. There's so many German presence in China. So I'm glad that you made a very good, you know, mentioning of those corporations. Again, and welcome to China, and we hope that we can strengthen the cooperation between China and Germany in the years ahead. Now, let me turn to another important friend of mine, and also we know Ambassador Dato Nguyen for quite some time, and he was actually appointed as ambassador to China in 2019. And prior to that, he was Deputy Secretary General for the Bilateral Affairs at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he was Ambassador of Malaysia to Iran, Deputy Director General of ASEAN Economic Community Division, ASEAN Malaysia National Secretary at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So he's very knowledgeable about this part of the world, and has actually contributed, many times of ambassador dialogue in CCG, and also play a very active role in promoting ASEAN-China cooperation. And of course, we know that China-Malaysia has really enjoyed a very, very good relations, and particularly also about the student education exchanges, and that is also service. We know that Xiamen University has a Malaysia campus, and we know that there's actually a lot of Chinese students studying in Malaysia as well, and Malaysia students in China. So it's very much, and tourism is also a very important service sector. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Your Excellency to give a talk. You are really a great speaker as well. I know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope to be able to live up to this advanced publicity. My Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin, as always, to thank Dr. Henry Wang and the team at the CCG for their very kind invitation. Malaysia is trade dependent. Trade is 130% of our GDP. Therefore, issues of international governance and cooperation are critical for us. So we very much welcome this ambassadorial roundtable. At present, the services sector contributes 55% to the Malaysian economy. 63% of our labour force is employed in this sector. Tourism and distributive trade contribute 48% of the services sector. Healthcare services and transport contribute another 13%. Prior to the pandemic in 2019, 26.1 million tourists visited Malaysia, out of which 3.1 million were from China, generating a total of $21 billion in revenue. This constituted 15.9% of our GDP. This year, we expect only 7.8 million arrivals. We estimate that next year we'll see arrivals to be at 80% of the pre-pandemic level. Full recovery, as you mentioned, Dr. Wang, is only expected in 2023. Clearly, Malaysia's strengths lie in traditional services sector rather than modern ones such as telecommunications and ICT and finance, although Malaysia is the global leader in Islamic finance. In comparison, manufacturing comprises 36% of our GDP and 26.8% of the labour force. However, despite the services sector being larger than manufacturing, our trade in goods dwarf trade in services. Last year, Malaysia's trade in goods stood at $492 billion, while trade in services stood at only $52.4 billion. Thus, our trade in goods is more than 9 times trade in services. In comparison, globally, in quarter 4 of last year, trade in goods amounted to $5.8 trillion. Trade in services was $1.6 trillion. So globally, trade in goods is only 3.6 times larger than trade in services, as compared to 9 times larger in the Malaysian context. What all this means is that Malaysia has vast scope for increasing its trade in services. For its own part, the Malaysian government has plans to strengthen specific areas of the services sector. Plans in this regard include the Financial Sector Blueprint 2022 to 26, which focuses on digitalization and ensuring that financial services facilitate the transition to a greener economy. Incidentally, these are all the themes for this year's CIFTIS. And secondly, with the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Industry Blueprint 2021-2025, we have a booth by the Malaysian Healthcare Travel Corporation, which I invite all of you to attend. Increasing trade in general, Malaysia's trade in services in particular, require an enabling international environment, as many of my colleagues mentioned today. So our focus today on governance and cooperation is again especially timely. The issues are very necessarily complex. I would just like to focus on these points. Firstly, the world is in the process of re-globalization. I do not believe that deglobalization is likely to occur. A re-globalized world, however, will witness the end of one key tenet of the international trading system which has been in existence for more than 30 years, namely that trade should be depoliticized. We have to accept that that ethos was in the past. Secondly, the role of the dollar will likely diminish. In the past, it was able to defy gravity because it was gravity keeping the international financial system together. Many factors are contributing to this diminution in the US dollar's role. For example, the US economy no longer occupies a preeminent role in the global economy. That is one. The argument that the dollar has been weaponized to serve political ends is difficult to refute, as is the view that the global economy suffers from the vagaries of US interest rate policies. This being the case, unsurprisingly, alternatives are being sought by some. Thirdly, digitalization is a key component for growth. Therefore, initiatives such as DEPA are welcomed. We also note that the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework proposed by the US also has a digital economy component. But these are plurilateral agreements. While the recent WTO ministerial meetings agreement did include a matter related to the digital economy, it is very limited. The external sector being what it is, I painted a grim future. The best way moving forward is perhaps for countries like Malaysia to focus on internal measures, leveraging it with the developments in the outside world to make our digital economy and services exports more robust. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Nishwa and Zini Abidin, for your comprehensive talk as well. And we know Malaysia is a very active country, ASEAN, and of course has been cooperating with China for, has a very good relation with China for many years, and we hope that we love to visit your booth here at CIFTIS and really appreciate your contribution to our Ambassador Roundtable. Now I'd like to invite Her Excellency Maria Gustava, the Ambassador of Republic of Mozambique to China. Actually, before ambassador appointment to China, she was the ambassador of the Republic of Mozambique in Indonesia, with multiple accreditations to Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and Timor-Leste. She's a senior career diplomat and, of course, joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since 1989, and so also a seasoned diplomat. And, of course, China and Mozambique has been cooperating very well, and Mozambique is a member of the FOCA, and so that actually from September 1st, 2022, the zero tariff treatment will take into effect, applying to 98% of Mozambique products as part of the initiative launched by FOCA. So we see some concrete cooperation there, and China has been also a very long-time friend of Mozambique, and we know that bilateral trade and bilateral exchange has been really on the rising side. So would like to invite Your Excellency to give your speech now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. And first of all, I wanted to thank the CGG for inviting Mozambique to this important roundtable on the economic recovery at this time of pandemic. The pandemic has reminded the world of significance of cooperation, and that in this interconnected world, a shock are transmitted more rapidly across the countries. Therefore, we need to work together to overcome all the problems, because one house in order is not enough. we should work really together. And also, it has shown us that there is a need of new approach to international cooperation because the crisis has unveiled a structural vulnerability in the global economy and in humanitarian scenario. Therefore, there is a need for a suitable of global challenge for this new century, and global economic cooperation is needed to be designed to respond to the new challenges. Also, the pandemic has shown us that a positive side, that there was a boost to already flourish digital economy worldwide, and the new technology and creative forms of business, including 5G and online shopping and remote learning, is gaining momentum and providing a new path for economic growth. Africa, a continent with around 1.3 billion people, is now enjoying fast growing in telecommunication and e-commerce, and it seeks to improve its digital infrastructure. China, as a strategic partner for Africa and for Mozambique in particular, should share the experience in e-commerce, digital payment, and logistical arrangements. Most of African countries, indeed, are now in need for solidarity because they are facing a distress from the multiple crises, including the debt distress. The food insecurity and job losses is higher, and which can cause impact on social life, dissatisfaction of people toward their government. So the decline in global demand, travel restriction, has kept away tourists, business people, and also has affected the students' movement, especially between Africa or Mozambique with China. So the new measures that are coming out to opening, they're really welcome, but we are looking for more, because before the pandemic, we had in China more than Mozambique, for instance, we had more than 500 students in China, but the number now has decreased to less than 100. So there is a need to reverse this path in terms of the student. And also this applies for the trades now that we are really welcome this new MOU that we just signed. We are looking forward for more non-resource products to come to China, especially agricultural products, because this is a way of win-win cooperation that can boost our economy that is now faced with the distress from all the crises that are affecting the world, not the Mozambique in particular. And China also is an important partner for Mozambique for the climate change. As you know, Mozambique is faced with so many cyclones lately that they are results from the climate change, and China is in forefront of ecological construction. So we are looking forward to formal cooperation in this area, apart from the other I just mentioned. Mozambique just approved a new stimulus packages to respond to the current situation. The package includes the reform measures that are in place that they give the private sector and the citizen at the center for the country economic transformation and development. and the economic acceleration stimulus package aimed at the attraction of investment, creation of jobs, since it is incorporate a strong component of transparency, governance, fiscal stimulus. We have approved 20 reforms package for stimulate our economy that also includes VAT reduction, VAT exemption for imports for a very important product for stimulation for industrial, agriculture and electrification, and also tax incentives for investment, simplification of procedures for people to enter in Mozambique, including law restriction for enter the country. We no longer have like the mask as mandatory in the country because we wanted to stimulate the economy. Also, we want more investors, tourists to come to our country. And we're looking to work more with China and the worldwide in this event. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador Gastava, for your very encouraging talk on the China-Mozambique cooperation and also the potential of China cooperate with Africa as well. And I'm also surprised to hear that student has dropped in China, but hopefully we'll pick up again with the recent opening of student visas back to China. So that could be a good news. So thank you again for your very encouraging discussion. Now I'd like to invite His Excellency Bishnu Shrestha, the Ambassador of Nepal to China. And I know that you've been new to China, also started in June 2022. And previously, you served as the chairman, election commissioner of the Nepal Communist Party since 2019, and Politburo member in charge of the Intellectual Special Committee and Human Rights Department since 2016. So welcome to China. So I know that Nepal has been, of course, again, a country that, a neighboring, friendly country that China and Nepal has joined a very good relation. I'm also glad to see that the zero tariff treatment granted by China to 98% of Nepal product will come into effect on September 1st. So just maybe yesterday. So, and that's really good news. And I know that we'll have more cooperation in the disaster prevention and mitigation and many other areas, and culture and tourism exchanges as well. So, Ambassador, your turn, please.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Mr. President of Center for China and Globalization, Excellencies, media persons, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, ni hao, namaste. Namaste is the greeting from Nepal, and I'm To address these challenges, the respective governments should focus to address the following issues. It is the need of this time to implement the new rules to support economy in new normal era. Streamlining and simplifying the regulation and government processes and procedures is also essential to boost the business environment. More focus on transparency, communication, and responsiveness between government and the private sectors and the business community is also necessary to regain the trust of the government. Focus on the real proven needs of the micro and small enterprises businesses to integrate them into the value chain. More efforts should be needed to create better business climate for the small and sustainable business and proper linkage mechanism to address the financing burden. Likewise, new international trade rules are required to address the paperless trade, digital trade, and a digital economy. Due to the borderless nature of the Internet, coordinated, compatible, and consistent rules of global standards would help to ensure a level playing field which would be more fair for the flow of international service trade. Bilateral investment promotion agreement and a double tax avoidance agreement would also be essential for the cooperation for the promotion of the service trade. Similarly, the negotiations are an opportunity to lead this era, formulate the new rules, and share better rules, practices that reflect the needs and concerns of developing economies. New rules should facilitate the digital trade and could help achieving a greater transparency and certainty, as well as increasing trust in the online digital context. This will help business and consumers to seize the opportunities offered by the digital trade. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, China has taken Islam measures to widen the opening up the service sectors to a higher level. It has implemented Regional Economic Comprehensive Partnership, which is a regional free trade agreement that will complement, integrate, and build the regional market for the members by offering a strong incentive to promote the regional trade and investment. China's initiation and formation of Joint Working Committee to join DEPA is a very good step. China has taken more measures and efforts to reform and opening up its service trade. So we have to better utilize this, I think, we have to better utilize these opportunities by reviewing and forward-looking our policies and reorient our structural policies in line with the Beijing opening up to market to make more wider linkage for the promotions of the digital services, the services trade, especially in the insurance and banking, travel and tourism, and other service sectors. China's plan for demonstration zones for trade in services or innovative development for trade in services also can play an important role. It can be the best example and can be replicated in the regional level as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the global FDI flows rose 64% and recovered to pre-pandemic level, reaching 1.6 trillion in 2021. Merger and acquisition activities and cross-border deals
recent statistics show that international visitors are returning to New Zealand at higher numbers than previously anticipated. They're staying longer and spending more. In part, this success has been possible because our industry and government took the opportunity of the disruption of COVID to develop a comprehensive plan for transforming the tourism industry. The first phase of the plan has already been rolled out with the aim of transforming through strengthening the workforce and ensuring a fully regenerative and sustainable tourism future for New Zealand. With regard to China, clearly China was a very important tourism market for us, and we're sure that it will again be in the future. So our main message in China is to say we'll be ready whenever China's ready to loosen its borders. We'll be looking forward to welcoming Chinese tourists back to New Zealand. Pre-COVID, we had between 450,000 Chinese visitors a year, and they were very high-value visitors. So we look forward to welcoming them back again when that's possible. Another sector, international services sector, that is also on the path to recovery is international education. And students from across the globe are already starting to arrive back in New Zealand. A core stayed on right through the last 2.5 years, but the numbers were significantly down. But we're looking ahead for 2023, the academic year. Students are already making decisions about what they'll be doing in that academic year, which for us begins at the beginning of the year rather than midway through, and the numbers are already looking good. This recovery is being supported by the government's long-term recovery plan for the international education sector that's been developed over the past 2 years and is focused on strengthening the existing model and working with the sector on innovation with new modes of delivery. And of course, we also welcome China's recent announcement of welcoming back international students with existing visas. We see that as positive and look forward to further liberalisation in the near future. Certainly there's a lot of interest from New Zealand students in resuming study here in China. Another way New Zealand's looking to support the post-pandemic services recovery is in finding new ways to support our small and medium-sized enterprises. They're a huge part of our economy. 97% of companies employ 20 or less people, a disproportionately large part of our GDP and of our employment. So very important to us, and New Zealand has adopted what we call a digital boost program focused on our SMEs, seeing digital activity and digital services as crucial to the health of our SMEs. While New Zealand is consistently ranked by the World Bank and others as one of the easiest places in the world to do business, we remain committed to doing more to facilitate SME operations. And the goal that we're aiming for is to be the most digitally engaged small business sector in the world. We're well on the way to being there, but we've still got work we need to do. Turning to the topic of plurilateral action, and I should begin by saying that for New Zealand, a small trading country, the multilateral trading architecture is of primary importance to us, and so we too are committed to seeing WTO reform, seeing the dispute settlement processes reinvigorated, and put a lot of energy and effort into that. While we're doing that, we're also working actively on extending the rules-based system supportive of the multilateral system through plurilateral initiatives. And I agree with others who've spoken about the interconnectedness of the rules-based system. Today, we're primarily talking about trade and economic rules-based system, but when the security aspects of the rules-based system are threatened, as we've seen through Russia's actions against Ukraine, it imperils all aspects, and the economic aspects clearly are not isolated, and we've heard from Mozambique in particular about the very immediate impacts on the well-being of the people of Mozambique through threat to food security and other issues as a result. I'd like to talk particularly about DEPA, the Digital Economic Partnership Agreement, as a primary example of regional open plurilateralism. It's one of the tangible ways New Zealand is seeking to make it easier for businesses and consumers to take advantage of digital trade. In addition to simplifying the relevant trade rules, DEPA also provides New Zealand and its other members with a forum in which to cooperate on a range of digital economy issues with partner countries. And I'd say DEPA was initiated by 3 economies, Singapore, Chile and New Zealand. And there's a track record to those 3 economies working together. It was those 3 that got together to initiate TPP almost 2 decades ago. And I had the joy of being part of that. And I think Luis did as well, one way or another. And since then, it, of course, has attracted in many more members and has transmogrified into being CPTPP. We approached DEPA in the same spirit, the 3 economies involved. And since it came into force, there's been approaches from 3 additional economies, South Korea, China and Canada, seeking to accede to DEPA. We see these plurilateral mechanisms as open to any economy which can meet the high standards required of membership. DEPA enables us to test ideas, learn from others and promote our businesses on issues such as paperless trading, data protection and digital inclusion. More broadly, New Zealand actively supports the widespread adoption of modern digital trade rules through other regional and multilateral deals such as RCEP, CPTPP and ongoing e-commerce discussion at the WTO. APEC also has a very important part in the regional context of building a consensus around digital norms. CPTPP in particular has set new plurilateral standards for trade and economic engagement in the region, including provisions relating to SMEs to promote their participation in international trade. New Zealand and China has recently upgraded our bilateral FTA, which now includes, for the first time, an e-commerce chapter within the FTA, with new commitments on issues such as online consumer protection and paperless trading. I remain optimistic that with the peak of the pandemic-related disruption hopefully behind us in most parts of the world, that by taking forward a forward-looking approach, the services sector in New Zealand, in the region and globally can recover and build beyond pandemic levels. And just briefly, I won't belabour this, but I did want to touch on good regulatory practice because it's so central to healthy services sectors and also to international services engagement. New Zealand has worked closely now with China for 4 years on China's initiative around improving the business environment. This is something that we take very seriously at a national level, and at the core of that is good regulatory practice. Good regulatory practice touches on all parts of the economy, but particularly for services. Because of the, it's not like an at-the-border set of regulations with goods trade. It's about market access and national treatment behind the border. So we work very actively with China in its initiatives around improving the regulatory environment to improve the business environment. And the principles that we continue to focus on in those engagements relate to transparency, ensuring that regulations affecting services are broadly consulted. We focus on accountability for the development of good regulation affecting services, that they be fact-based, science-based regulation, and that they take into account international standards, in particular multilateral standards that are set. We also advocate for an approach to regulation that is appropriately targeted and proportionate in its response, and of course also consistent and predictable, and that relates not just to the adoption of services regulation, but also to the way regulation is implemented and applied. So for our part, we look forward to continuing to work with China around the good regulatory practice of the services sector and the economy more generally. I think we all have a lot to share from, a lot to gain from sharing our experiences in this area. 那么非常感谢 Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Faneni, for your very comprehensive and also very encouraging speech, remarks. And I think you emphasized the service sectors of, and of course, the digital economy, you mentioned that, and DEPA, which I think is very important to the current CIFTIS conference going on right now. And China is really, I can see that China is really working very hard to catch up on the digital international standards by applying CPTPP and DEPA. And that would be really the future trend, I think, for China to continue to grow. I'm glad that you mentioned about the China-New Zealand collaboration on other service sectors like tourism, student exchanges, and also SME. And I know that prior to the 2020, tourists are the largest source of in New Zealand, and the student also the second largest. So we hope that we can resume that after the pandemic controlled. And as a matter of fact, we have many international school heads here actually today. so they are really interesting to study in all those countries that were presented here. Now, next, I'd really like to invite His Excellency Luis Kesta, and he's the ambassador of Peru to China, and since also 2018. And prior to this, he was the Director General for Economic Affairs in Lima, and also APEC 2016 as LM chairs at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also served Ambassador of Peru to Australia and also New Zealand. And I know that Peru is a member state of a Pacific Alliance. And we're very pleased CCG hosted Pacific Alliance four ambassadors come to CCG last December, including Chile, Colombia, and Mexico, of course, from Peru as well. So there's quite a lot of potentials to be collaborated between Latin American countries and China. So today we actually had quite a wide range of representatives of different parts of the world. So that's your term, and we would like to hear from you. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henry Wan, and thanks for the invitation once again to participate in this Ambassadors Roundtable about the services sector in this new edition of CIFTIS. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the China International Fair for Trade Services is among the most important trade fairs in China, with the CIIE in Shanghai and the China Import and Export Fair in Cancun, providing a well-established framework to the advancement of trade, not only of goods, but also of services. The COVID-19 pandemic has been the biggest trial for a generation, and we should acknowledge that the deceleration of global economic growth can only be overcome with open markets that allow goods, services, capitals, and mainly people to move seamlessly between countries. Among those four aspects, promoting trade in services is the best approach to enhance the higher value of services supply chains. The concurrence of many issues, such as the disruption of international trade in general, disarray of services supply chains, decoupling that hinders technological and digital advances, travel restrictions within and from other countries, inflation, economic recession, and the effects of worldwide food scarcity and climate change are the most important setbacks for trade in services growth. Governments and international organizations around the world should consider solutions to these urgent issues, providing the best foundations to promote trade in services such as education, tourism, health and financial services, among many, in order to eventually overcome the gloomy and uncertain economic outlook we are facing nowadays. The best strategies to tackle these problems are promoting inclusive policies for services, reconstruction of resilient supply chains, and the easing of travel restrictions. Countries should stay committed to globalization and openness. Furthermore, the challenges for emerging markets must be taken into consideration. We need more inclusive and sustainable policies that benefit all the world. We require to improve market access and to continue promoting economic integration as before. The best to show a worldwide recovery of a strong global economic integration, trade and investment must flow without barriers. People should travel freely again, and our health system and networks of cooperation must be strengthened and better coordinated to cope with current and new issues. China, when entered the World Trade Organization in 2001, has compromised to pursue an open, productive, and participatory development strategy. Moreover, China will have to show that, apart from its engagement with its circular economy, it has to be at the same time even more engaged with the world economy as a whole, and that it is ready to play its part in the strengthening of global trade. China's active participation in APEC as a mechanism of cooperation and the RCEP as a regional trade agreement, and its interest to adhere to other regional economic treaties, such as the CPTPP, in which Peru is a member, and the DEPA, that Claire mentioned, are encouraging signals. However, structural internal reforms will be needed. The Memorandum of Understanding between China and Korea to foster resilient supply chains is a good example. Let's get together as partners to seek new ways to promote trade in general and trade in services. The key meetings of APEC in Thailand and G20 in Indonesia next November should be opportunities to find and propose new strategies as equals. Peru is now fostering the recovery of its economy, as other emerging markets in the world, by strengthening our supply chains and attracting new and better investments, especially in digital transformation and tourism. Peru is eager to continue its efforts to attract more capital and business needed for our post-pandemic recovery, especially since an important segment of society went back to poverty in the period 2020-2021. We have now also our booth in CIFTIS, where you can learn more about Peru and its services sector. Peru's presidency of APEC in 2024 would be an amazing opportunity to make great leaps towards our goals of inclusive economic development. The same could be said of our presidency in the Andean Community and the Pacific Alliance next year. It is important that partners work hand in hand to develop comprehensive solutions to trade issues. Some regions have an unfaltering commitment to open markets, while others have pursued different points of view, reflecting their mix of risk tolerance, needs, resources, capacity, and past pandemic experiences. Only through an open economy we can obtain inclusive and sustainable economic development. Without a doubt, the next decade will be even more challenging. The creation of employment and the reduction of poverty through flexible and innovative policies, the renewal of academic exchanges, plus the intensive use of technology should be our common approach. An unwavering commitment to open markets and make more open borders should be the guideline for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Quiseda. A very good speech you have, and you mentioned about the Latin American cooperation with China. I know that China is the largest trading partner with many Latin American countries, so this is actually growing very fast as well. And I'm also glad you mentioned about G20 and APEC summit, and hopefully, this will be really a big breakthrough in several years of high-level meetings of global and regional leaders, and we hope that we can resume face-to-face dialogues after this, summit. So this is really, you mentioned all those good things about that we can expect. So thank you again very much. Now, last but not the least, I'd like to introduce His Excellency Dr. Ali Obed Al-Dihari. Dr. Ali Dihari is the ambassador of United Arab Emirates to China. he actually, probably among all the ambassadors here, you are one of the earliest, took up his Beijing ambassador post since 2017. And so throughout, you have a very impressive careers. You had a wide range of senior positions, including general manager, national gas shipping company for UAE, and then chief executive officer for both Abu Dhabi National Tanker Company as well, and the deputy chairman and board members of Emirates General Petroleum Corporation, etc. So many CEO posts. He was also involved in OPEC affairs since 1919 as the UAE national representative and the UAE governor for OPEC in your early career. So very savvy business and diplomat. And so I think this year you are the country of honor for the CIFTIS 2022. And so we heard you from opening, and I'd like to hear from you again. Your Excellency, please.
President Wang, thank you so much for your kind introduction. You make me feel I'm a bit old man. But of course, to be the last speaker, this is wonderful. This means my speech I will cut half. So this is to start up with. And of course, I have spoken this morning, so I will try my best not to repeat myself and to move forward. But indeed, just to touch on that, I'm delighted to take a part in another round of ambassadors roundtable, and this is a very special one during the sideline of CIFTIS, and of course for UAE is a very special round of CIFTIS as UAE, as a perfectly expressed President Wang, that we are this year the country guest of honor to take part of in CIFTIS. So and this is a recognition of the advancement of the UAE services and trade, particularly when it comes into the state of the art of supply and logistics, renowned ports, and our active aviations, and of course UAE, a financial center hub in the Middle East and North Africa. So we are very proud of this. And please, if you had a moment, pass by our pavilion. We try our best to put it as beautiful as possible. So please, if you had a moment, we'd be delighted to receive you. Just to touch base on, and I will try to make it very short over here, that our world today is increasingly racked by regional conflicts, the lightening of effects of the pandemic, the return of a great power politics, and the subsequent trend toward globalization. As a result, the global economy and international security are already in a state of serious destabilization. Cross-border communication, travel, and global trade have either been disrupted or have become more challenging than ever before. While countries must embrace increased cooperation between countries as a key method to effectively tackle these challenges, the global community is increasingly seeking innovative solutions to our enormous and rapidly emerging concerns. While geopolitical friction has increased, economies around the world continue to change. A key driver of this change today is digital transformation. In the recent years, the digital revolution has more deeply extended into sectors of all types, including media, finance, healthcare, consumer products, and manufacturing. However, as a sector such as manufacturing evolve, their complexities and challenges likewise also evolve. There is no doubt the great need for the construction of a robust digital ecosystem is in place. Such ecosystem would be able to respond to emerging challenges and would empower manufacturing industries, their partners, and even consumers to collaborate more easily, drive innovation, foster a strong partnership, and ultimately generate great value. So I will stop here, President Wang, so that without further ado, I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your short but very stimulating talk. I think that the UAE and, of course, the Middle East in general that has a huge potential in collaborating with China and also for those service sectors as well. So I appreciate your contribution. But of course, the UAE is a part of the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is now so important in the world. We were facing LNG and climate change challenges. So thank you for your contribution. I think we probably almost run out of time, and we don't have enough time for a little Q&A now. But probably I will conclude, and I think we had a very comprehensive, very stimulating dialogue, Ambassador Roundtable this morning. We have 11 ambassadors participated, and actually I found that we have a very balanced gender, of all the representative of the speakers, and including the UN coordinator. We have 12 ambassadors and chargé d'affaires spoke at our event. But in addition to that, we still have a representative of a diplomatic corps from Kazakhstan, from South Africa, from Japan, from Korea, from many other diplomatic French and of course Dutch and many other diplomatic representatives from joined us this morning as well, and also foundations, multinationals, and all the school. Quite a few heads of international school presented here this morning. They all want to hear firsthand from our speakers. And also we have Ms. Liu Haiyin. She's the deputy head of the Beijing Commerce Bureau, but also the deputy head of Beijing Municipal Leading Group of the 2 Zoom, which is one of the organizers of this conference, present throughout the meeting as well. So thank you for your presence, and also other government officials from central and Beijing municipalities. And also, I'm very pleased to report that our event actually is broadcast live through Streamline on the CGTN, China Focus, Caijin, Phoenix, Observer, Zhiwang, Baidu, WeChat, Weibo, Kuaishou, Bilibili, and Jinri Toutiao, many other, Douyin, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, So we have almost 200,000 people watched us online on this busy Friday morning, still working day. So I'm glad that, all the message has been really come across, and we have really benefited enormously of this open dialogue and constructive exchange. And I think that this CIFTIS is another symbol of China's continuous open up. As President Xi, wrote in opening remarks letter that China will continue to open, and service sector will be one of the leading forces for China continuous opening up.